Okay, kids, in this video we will be finishing the subjunctive in nominal clauses by talking about the remaining letters from wedding, which are D, D, and N. So the letters D, D, and N also can be called the three Ds: doubt, denial, and disbelief. Sometimes denial is referred to as negation, hence the N part of wedding, but sometimes you'll see or hear these referred to as the three Ds. The subjunctive is used in the second clause if the verb in the first clause expresses doubt, uncertainty, disbelief, or denial. If the opposite of the verbs is used, you need to use indicative in the second clause to convey certainty. I'm sure one of the questions you may have had as we were going through the subjunctive with W, E, I, and G from wedding is, why didn't we go in order? Why didn't we just go W, E, D, D, I, and G? The reason why W, E, I, and G are separate from D, D, and N is that W, E, I, and G really don't require as much thought. As long as you have a verb that shows a wish, a will, a want, an emotion, and a personal expression, or God, and you have all the components and you can answer the necessary questions such as, do I have something from wedding, do I have a K, do I have a subject change, you're always going to use the subjunctive. Basically, in the examples that we've seen so far, the answer has either been the subjunctive or the infinitive if the K has not been present. D, D, and N, or the three Ds, are definitely more complex. These are sentences that really require you to pay attention carefully to the nature of the verb, because in the examples that we're going to see now, you're going to see more instances of the indicative being used. So now we're really going to have to carefully examine these sentences and decide whether we need the subjunctive or the indicative. And of course the infinitive would still be in play if there were no K in the sentence. So to break down what you saw in the previous slide, the basics of it are, if the verb in the first clause shows doubt, uncertainty, disbelief, or denial, you will use the subjunctive in the second clause. If the verb in the first part of the sentence shows either no doubt, certainty in something, a belief in something, or no denial, then you will use the indicative in the second clause. On the next slide, we will look at the verbs that will show you doubt or uncertainty or disbelief or denial, and their opposites would show you no doubt, certainty, belief, or no denial. So what you see here is a cutout, written cutout of the verbs that will be used with the subjunctive because they convey one of the three Ds, doubt, denial, or disbelief, and the opposite of those verbs because those particular verbs, the opposites of them will indicate a certainty or a belief in something. So, verbs like no creer, to believe. If you do not believe something, then there's a disbelief. You would use the subjunctive. So the opposite of that is going to be creer, to believe. Okay, dudar, to doubt, or then not doubt. Estar seguro or no estar seguro, to be sure or not sure. Negar, to deny. No pensar, to not think. No ser cierto, to be uncertain. Ser dudoso, to be doubtful. No ser evidente, to be not evident. If something's not evident, it's not believable. There's doubt. No ser seguro, to not be sure. No ser verdad, to be not true. And there are more. If you notice, the differences between the verb on the left and the verbs on the right is basically the word no. That word no, either adding it or subtracting it, will help you to understand whether there is a doubt or denial or disbelief on something. So all the verbs on the left show doubt, denial, or disbelief, or a negation in something. The verbs on the right are the opposites of the verbs on the left, and they show you that there is a belief in something, or that there is no doubt, or there is certainty in something, or there's not a denial of something. Verbs on the left, subjunctive. The opposites of those verbs on the right, we're going to use the indicative. So continuing our discussion behind the theory of the three Ds, or D, D, and N, is we are still going to use our essential questions. If we make it all the way through, yes, yes, and yes, we're going to use our sequence of tenses. However, with D, D, and N, unlike W, E, I, and G, we may sometimes answer no to question 1. Is there a subjunctive setup? Well, no, there's not, because there might be a belief in something, or not denial of something, or certainty about something. In that case, we will use the indicative. We will stop the 4 essential questions. We will use the indicative in the second clause. When using the indicative, the rule of thumb generally is to stay in the same tense as in the first clause. So if we decide that we're not going to use the subjunctive and the verb that's in the first clause is in the present tense, then we will stay in the present tense. If it's in the future, we'll stay in the future, and so on and so forth. These are some examples. So I'd like you to pause the video, write them out, try them, and decide whether you should use the subjunctive or the indicative or the infinitive. Okay, let's take a look at these. The first one. No hay duda que ellos saben las respuestas. Let's go through the 4 essential questions. Do I have a subjunctive setup? No, I do not. There is no doubt. There is no doubt. So, because there is no doubt, we stop. We use the indicative. This is in the present tense, so I want to stay in the present tense. Number 2. Tú niegas que el ser amable. Do I have a subjunctive setup? Yes, I have a denial. Do we have a que? Yes, we do. Do we have 2 different subjects? Yes and yes. What tense is this in? This is in present, so you want to use present subjunctive. Sea. You deny that he is nice. 3. Fue evidente que ellos ir a casa. Do I have a subjunctive setup? No. It was evident. If something was evident, then there is no doubt about it, or no denial, or no disbelief. So I'm going to stop my process, and I'm going to use the indicative. Remember, the rule of thumb. This verb is in the preterite, so I want to stay in the preterite. Fueron. No creía que nosotros querer comprar esos boletos. Do I have a subjunctive setup? Yes. Do not believe. Do not believe. Do I have a que? Yes. Do I have 2 different subjects? Yes and yes. What tense is this in? In the imperfect. So I want to use the imperfect of the subjunctive. Quisiéramos. I did not believe that we wanted to buy those tickets. And then lastly, es dudoso que yo dormir demasiado. Do I have a subjunctive setup? Yes, I do, because we have it is doubtful that. Okay, so if we have doubt, we need the subjunctive. Do I have a que? Yes. Do I have 2 different subjects? Yes. It, because it's an impersonal expression. And then yo. What tense is the first part of the sentence in? It's in present tense, so I want to use the present subjunctive. Duerma. Es dudoso que yo duerma demasiado. It's doubtful that I sleep too much. As we finish the subjunctive and nominal clauses, or with wedding, my final piece of advice is absolutely go on to Colby Spanish Grammar. Go to the right-hand side, present subjunctive, or the sequence of tenses. They have about 6 or 7 activities just on noun clauses, and they break it down. They'll say verbs of emotion or doubt or denial, etc. So they have them where you can check the individual letters and practice that way, and they also have ones where they compile it and you can work collectively. That would be my biggest recommendation, to do more practice other than the ones that are on the video, to really get a lot better on them. And as always with Colby, when you click a right or a wrong answer, it'll tell you why you got it right or why you got it wrong, and it gives you that instant feedback. So please go on Colby Spanish Grammar and practice a lot more subjunctive and nominal clauses. It will absolutely help you out and make you a master of the subjunctive and nominal clauses. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to email me or contact me.